Nerdiest, we're coming back to you.
Oh, I like this book so much.
What?
We're coming back to you to the nerdiest show on the internet and books received. What?
What did you say?
We're coming back to you?
That didn't flow that way.
No.
We're back. Okay, let me say this again.
Are we leaving or are we coming back?
I wasn't born here. We are back. Sorry, that was loud. I know. We're back on the nerdiest show on the internet. Books received, and we're addressing now the Palestine theme with a book on the human right to dominate by Nicola Perugini and Neve Gordon. The book is published by Oxford's
University Press. Can we just do that for every book? This is Palestine.
It's Oxford University Press, and it's actually not brand new. It's I think we're breaking down here like with episode 1 where that wasn't funny.
Your jokes are standing between me and food.
I feed you.
I feed you. Okay, guys, this is a very important topic, and the human right to dominate. I will read a little bit of the blurb, and here we go. What if human rights were used to oppress or even harm the very populations they were intended to protect? Starts with this question. In the human right to dominate, Nicola Perugini and Neve Gordon challenge readers to reconsider everything that they think they know about human rights, arguing against the popular assumption that increased human rights lead to a greater degree of freedom. The book explores the subjective and politicized nature of human rights in the context of the Israel-Palestine conflict, demonstrating instances in which human rights can be used as a tool for oppression and illustrating the ways that human rights can be interpreted to justify colonialism, warfare, and even lethal violence against civilians. The book is actually sort of medium size to the smaller size, and has only 4 chapters with an introduction and a conclusion. The first chapter is titled The Paradox of Human Rights. Second chapter is The Threat of Human Rights. The third is The Human Right to Kill. And fourth, The Human Right to Colonize. And the conclusion is titled What Remains of Human Rights. Noura interrupted us several times to say, I love this book. So we will turn to her and her commentary.
Well, I just want to say when this book came out, I interviewed Nicola, one of the co-authors, for Status Hour. We also had them do a Newton. I read it. Upon reading it, one of the first things I said to Nicola was, I really wish I wrote this book. It's one of those reads. It is a theoretical intervention that adds to a rich literature on the counterintuitive and critical approaches to the benevolence of international law, and particularly human rights law. It does so in a way that's really scathing and thorough, and shows us, for example, how is it that the depoliticizing tendencies of a human rights universalist framework gut any kind of context to understand that equality is not the same as equity. And so for what people may, even though this might sound really odd, what do you mean human rights can lead to oppression? Think about when a court says it's illegal for anyone to sleep under a bridge, that's going to be equally applied to the rich and the poor, but it's only going to hurt the poor. Or if they say that everyone has the right to sleep under a bridge, again, who is going to be primarily affected by it? And so I think what Neve and Nicola are doing here are showing us how this is very much at play in the question of Palestine, specifically in the questions around human shielding, or the idea that left unchecked, settlers in the West Bank are going to claim their human rights not to be removed, to remain alongside their families, the right to their lands, and so on and so forth, that without politics, which it has to be discerning and not universal, it's never universal, it's context, it's materially and historically contingent, that we can't settle these questions. And so what are the risks? And they highlight those risks. I think they probably could have done a job of calibrating it a bit more, but that's perhaps the work of others to do to help. And now they're working on another project on human shielding and the genealogy of human shielding internationally. So I think that the work they're producing together is excellent. This is part of what I think is a legacy that they're developing.
Great, thanks so much, Noura. Is this a book that you could teach that would be best taught in like a law class or a class on sociology of human rights, or could this be incorporated into say a history class that would include also the history of the development of humanitarianism and the question of universal rights and all of that? How would you fit this book?
I mean, it depends on the instructor and how they're developing a curriculum. I think it lends itself better to a case study than it does to a historical class. I think it's also making a rich theoretical intervention. So possibly to a class that's just thinking about that begins a course by thinking, what are human rights? What do they do? What is a right? Why do you need a right? What is this legal claim? Who is enshrining this legal claim? And so it gets us into, I think, abstract levels of discussion, and is more so targeting. And I think it's not targeting the practitioners as much, and is targeting more of scholars who are thinking about this and others who are trying to disrupt these otherwise universal ideas that we have about the benevolence of law.